Is this going to be the year? Is this finally going to be the year for the Pittsburgh Steelers? That's the $64,000 question. Because this truly feels like it either has to be the year or you're going to see a decline in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, how much longer can it take? How many more years do we have to wait? Like, you look at this Steelers team, and they should have another Lombardi trophy, and they just don't. When you look at 2017, you're talking about the Jesse James rule, or should I say the catch that wasn't a catch that ultimately cost them against the New England Patriots, that cost them home field advantage throughout the playoffs. This was a team that seemed like at one point in time, you've got AB healthy, you've got Bell healthy, you got Big Ben healthy, you're heading into the playoffs, riding at least somewhat high, and you've got the freaking Jaguars of all teams coming into your place in the divisional round when you've had 2 weeks to prepare for them, and then you go out for all intents and purposes and lay a freaking egg. It's like Big Ben and Antonio Brown were doing everything they could to try and move this team on to the next round, for only then Mike Tomlin and the coaching staff to try and do everything they could to undercut that process and that progress. Mission accomplished. Like, to me, I really thought last year was supposed to be the Steelers' year. Last year, I really believed it was going to be the Steelers' year. And at some point in time, I guess I'm going to wise up and realize that they are just a tease. They are really, really good, but they are not truly great. They lack the leadership, the decision-making, the maturity, the mental fortitude, intestinal fortitude to make it happen. Because what else can you really say? How else do you really put it? I mean, 2017, when you talk about disappointments and disappointing outcomes, that was an incredibly disappointing end of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And one that, I'm sorry, I still don't understand how Mike Tomlin survived that. I know you won a Super Bowl with him as your head coach, but that was a decade ago, if we're being fair here. It was almost a decade ago. And I understand the Rooney family has always been incredibly loyal to their head coaches. And you look at the fact that they've had 3 head coaches over the past almost 50 damn years between Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. And yes, sometimes we could be too quick to blame the head coach, and sometimes it's too easy to blame the head coach. That's the quick and easy out. And sometimes it's easy to focus on the 1 or 2 big negatives and ignore all the other positives that are at play here. And I get that. But in the NFL, when you're in position to potentially win a championship, that window of opportunity, unless you're Belichick and Brady, is very small. You're talking about 3 to 4 years at the very most. It is a very cyclical league with as much parity as there is with the salary cap and everything else. You know, if you get in the right position, you're lucky to have 3 or 4 years of really being a contender. The Steelers have that. But how much longer can you really expect to have that? If this isn't the year, I don't know what is, which is what really surprised me in the first round when they took Terrell Edmonds, the safety from Virginia Tech. To me, I had like a 4th to 5th round grade on him. I just didn't see it. I saw a tremendous athlete, and I didn't see much of an instinctual safety or a football player, frankly. And to me, when you look at the Steelers, they continue to invest draft picks in the secondary, and they seem to not go very well. Why would you continue to invest in that position when you have drafted other positions well? Just saying. Now, you suppose if you're the Steelers and you feel like you don't have a ton of team needs, you're gambling on athleticism and upside, and I get that. But when I look at it, you take Terrell Edmonds in round 1, then you take James Washington in round 2. Even though I have my questions about James Washington, a deep threat without great deep speed, at least I could say the Steelers, from a draft standpoint, have earned some benefit of the doubt when it comes to the wide receiver position. Then drafting Mason Rudolph in round 3, meaning they cut, finally, Landry Jones. It's going to be Mason Rudolph time someday, Steelers fans. That's got to get your dick semi-erect. But it doesn't look like you get a ton of help out of this year's draft class, although I know Edmonds is going to be starting the year as strong safety, and we'll see how that goes. But this is still a really good Steelers team. You look at them, you've got the strengths with Big Ben and that passing game with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. They can move the ball with consistency through the air, and they can hit big plays through the air, especially if they have Le'Veon Bell. That just adds another element to that Steelers passing game. Then you look at them defensively. That front seven is pretty good. Statistically, they're pretty good, but then they also will sit there and lay a freaking egg against Jacksonville. I don't get it. This is a defense that can be pretty good, has shown flashes of being able to be really good. They just need to be really good when it really, really matters. But for a team that's so good and with so much talent and marquee talent at key positions offensively, with a future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, I look at him and I just got so many concerns. First is the Le'Veon Bell situation. How this ever came to get to this point, I don't know. You could blame the Steelers, you could blame Bell, his representation, you could blame everybody. But the fact is, if you're the Steelers, you have to find a way to get the guy in the camp. You got to find a way to get the guy on the team. You got to find a way to get it done. Because you're in a position right now where you can win a championship. And a guy like Le'Veon Bell can be a significant part of that. And look, I'm not here to dismiss James Conner entirely because I think he's a good back. I think he's a starting level back in the NFL. And just because you lose Le'Veon Bell doesn't automatically mean that the Steelers can't contend. They might just have to go about it a little bit of a different way. But why risk it? Why take that chance? I thought it was interesting how the offensive linemen were coming out like Ramon Foster and bashing on Le'Veon Bell. It indicated two things to me. Number one, this is why the idiots in the NFL talking about the players get taken over the coals when it comes to collective bargaining agreements with the owners, because they don't have a united front. They come out there and bash each other. You get a lot of divisiveness and, frankly, stupidity. Like, imagine sitting there and bashing one of your teammates for trying to get paid. Two, is there some deeper-seated crap in that Steelers locker room revolving around Le'Veon Bell? These players are coming out and saying things for a reason and not for good reasons, and that should be a little concerning. And then you got to wonder if when Le'Veon Bell is going to see the field, how long it's going to take, and how effective and how focused he's going to be. It's a significant question. Then I worry about this team. Every year they lose to bad teams. They have a tendency to play up or down to their level of competition. And frankly, you could look at last year in that divisional round. The Jaguars came in prepared. They came in hungry. They came in fearless with nothing to lose. And they were the better team that day, and they absolutely deserved to win. Why? Because the Steelers were so focused on getting to the Patriots that they forgot to play the Jaguars. They play down to the level of competition, and they don't take everybody seriously. It is a direct reflection, in my opinion, of the leadership of that team, and that starts with the head coach and Mike Tomlin. When you hear guys like Terry Bradshaw and such bashing on him and blasting him, I get it. Sometimes you could say, well, that's a generational thing, and Tomlin's style is different, and skip and whoop-de-woo, and the guy has won a Super Bowl, and he's gotten his team to a certain point in several other seasons. You're absolutely right. And a better head coach would have won more than one world championship with this crew. He would have. Tomlin's not that guy. And when the chips are on the line and everything is up for grabs, do you really trust Mike Tomlin to make the right calls and the right decisions and put his team in the right position to be able to capitalize? I don't. Why would you? And then when you look at what happened last year, in the past couple of years, and the disappointing finishes they've had, I wonder if the Steelers have already peaked and they're actually starting to go on a small decline. I need to see something different out of them this year that lets me know that they can truly contend. And when I look at their schedule, it's funny. I'm not talking about big marquee matchups like against the Patriots or anybody else. I'm looking at games against bad teams. Week 1 at Cleveland. Week 3 at Tampa Bay. Week 12 at Denver. You start off with Week 1. Without Le'Veon Bell going into Cleveland to face a Browns team that, yes, they've owned, but the Browns at times can find ways to play the Steelers tough. This screams danger, 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 upset special, upset alert. The Steelers have to find a way to be focused enough to not play down to the level of competition to play at their maximum potential. Otherwise, they're going to lose week 1. And can you imagine how ugly it's going to be if you don't have Le'Veon Bell and you go into Cleveland, an 0-16 Browns team from last year, and you lose in week 1? All hell is going to break loose as it should. Then week 3, going into Tampa, you'll be facing Ryan Fitzpatrick, not Jameis Winston. Again, absolutely no reason for the Steelers to have any trouble in that game, and that is exactly the type of game that the Steelers struggle with. Even week 12, at Denver. Case Keenum's going to be the starter you would think at that point in time. Denver still has a decent defense, but the Steelers should be able to beat the Broncos. But again, another road game against a team that is inferior is exactly the type of team that I worry about with the Steelers, the type of game that I think becomes kind of that letdown game because you know you get a couple of them every year with this team. Now, a lot of this Le'Veon Bell stuff will be sorted out in due time, I'm sure. And I would imagine at some point in time, he'll be back with the team and he'll be playing and we'll forget all about it. I still think this is a really, really good team. They're going to win 12 games or so. They're going to win their division probably going away. They're going to end up with a top 2 seed. They really, really need to find a way to get home field advantage because that's the one thing they could do to potentially change the trajectory of things a little bit. But home field advantage in the divisional round didn't help them last year against Jacksonville. The Steelers have enough pieces in place, especially with Le'Veon Bell in the fold, to win a Super Bowl. And if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, then it is time to really start rethinking everything, and Mike Tomlin will truly need to be shown the door.